now, you're tuned into RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to your RBLR Sports Rays podcast. I'm Ben here, and with me is Yurika. He's filling in for Zach today. How's it going, Yurika?
It's really good, man. I'm glad I could be here.
Yeah, it's been a while since it's been us on the pod here, so just like old times. Even though it's only been on since like June, it's like, you know, a throwback episode.
Well, I'm always in the shadows, right?
That's true.
I'm always ready to help and ready to Google something for you whenever you need it. So now I get to fill in every once in a while, so it's okay.
Yeah, it's good. It's hopefully you won't have much to edit out this episode. I know.
Yeah. Well, if anything, it'll be my fault. It'll be my own fault for doing that. Well, I guess what's happened in the Rays world? Have you watched any baseball since the end of the Rays season?
I mean, I've been paying attention. I'm just finishing up grieving, so I'm like at the acceptance stage. You know, it was a great season, 100 wins, and it was kind of a rebuilding year almost. According to the smart people at ESPN who predicted the Rays to finish like fourth, I think, at the beginning of the season. So, you know, this is when I'm going to be like, yeah, this was, you know, an okay prediction. It's a rebuilding year. So, yeah, I've accepted it. What about you? How are you feeling?
Yeah, I've pretty much like zoned out. I mean, we have so many great things going on in Tampa Bay. You know, the Rowdies are finishing up their regular season. They're hopefully going to be the number one seed in their league for the entire playoffs. You know, obviously the Bucks are literally the best start they've ever had in the history of their franchise, and the Lightning are en route to a third consecutive playoff appearance, if not a Stanley Cup. So there's a lot to distract me from the pain and misery and disappointment that I had in the last the playoffs. But you know, objectively, if you take a step back, you have to say that this was a successful. I mean, it's 100 wins, right? It's a successful season. No matter how you want to analyze it, other than the fact that we had such high expectations, and that balloon was popped by you know, Kike Hernandez and the Boston and a 2-foot tall wall in right field. So you know, not to mention the umpiring and all the things that you guys had talked about in the last couple of weeks, but. I'm right there with you. I'm still in my grieving steps, but we'll get there. But there's some hardware that they're going to dole out next week at least. I think that'd be fun to talk about. I have a bunch of questions for you about, you know, Gold Gloves and Silver Sluggers and players and Cy Youngs and managers and all that kind of stuff. So I thought it'd be interesting if I kind of fire those at you, if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's. I guess we'll start with the defense, right? Defense wins championships. I guess we'll just stick with the American League. The National League, as important as it is, you know, unless there's some kind of big breakout standout that you wanna talk about, let's just go position by position, focusing on the American League. Pitchers. If you look at pitching, you had Jose Barrios, Zach Greinke, and Dallas Keuchel that were the finalists for the Gold Glove. Who do you think's going to win that award?
So just as a precursor real quick, I meant to mention it earlier. I have three metrics I'm kind of focusing on here. Outs above average from MLB's like baseball savant thingy. That's what I feel and a lot of others feel is like one of the best defensive metrics available right now. Defensive runs saved is kind of like, it's cool, but it's not the best. So a lot of my notes that I have in the stuff I looked up are, you know, centered around like the zone rating and outs above average. But defensive runs saved is used to evaluate like catchers and pitchers and, you know, some other weird positions where they don't really have the outs above average. So just wanted to throw that out there. But going back to your question with pitchers, Keuchel is a pretty clear front runner for me. I know I just said defensive runs saved isn't that great, but it's the best we have for pitchers, and he's got 12 of them. That's the next closest has like 5 or 6, so it's a pretty clear favorite, and Keuchel there for me at least.
Now, like, what's a standout like for pitching for Silver Slugger? Like, are they just kind of looking at Or I guess maybe with any of these, like without there being some kind of giant metric that you can just say, oh yeah, there you go, that guy's better than everyone, because you can just see it right here with this metric or that metric. Are these like who has the most web gems, you think, or like as the coaches and managers are voting on these things, like are they just kind of looking at like, no, that guy always killed us at this position?
Right. So, I mean, the managers and the coaches who vote on this stuff, like, they work for professional teams, so they're way smarter than I am, and, like, that I'll ever be about baseball. Like, they have all the insight, but some of the metrics they're, like, using might not be the best. But with pitchers, it's tricky because a lot of it kind of is the eye test, and, like, relievers can't really win it because they don't really have a big enough sample size, so we won't really know who like the best fielding pitcher is,
right.
You know, over the course of a season. It's kind of hard to tell, but you know, starters who consistently make the plays and don't hurt themselves, have a decent pickoff move. Those are the kind of guys that are going to get the nomination. So Keuchel has a great pickoff move, and he does well to control the run game, and he doesn't hurt himself usually. So he's going to be, and he gets a lot of opportunities too, I guess, because he's a ground ball pitcher. So that kind of factors in now that I'm realizing that. So. But yeah, I think Keuchel's a good choice.
Yeah, it's just that like that position specifically is kind of like the hardest to be like, oh yeah, you know, Keuchel's head and shoulders above everyone. You know,
yeah.
It's like, well, you know, did he save himself from being decapitated more times than any other pitcher? You know, like okay, but it's a little, I hope, easier to move to the other positions. Let's start with catcher.
So I was hoping it would be easier, but catcher's a little tricky too. But there's still more to work with. So.
Well, with catching, do you think framing has a part to play in it?
I wish it would. I feel like the guys who make the nominations are just like, yeah, caught stealing is the only thing that counts.
Okay, because
it's a little dated, but
yeah. Well, we've got Maldonado from the Astros, you've got Sean Murphy of the Athletics, and Salvador Perez of the Royals, but no Zunino anywhere in there, and that's kind of like our best hope, I guess, at defensive catcher for this award. Was he snubbed, or are these guys just caught stealing everyone out of the building?
I mean, I think it was a bit of a snub for the nomination. I don't think he would have won it just because I think Sean Murphy had a phenomenal season. He had 10 defensive runs saved, and he was in the 82nd percentile in framing. So Zunino was in like the 94th percentile, I believe. So he was a little bit higher, but he didn't make those flashy plays as much for the defensive runs saved. So, you know, it's fine. Murphy had a great season, but the thing that confuses me is how Salvador Perez is even close to getting nominated. He hasn't really ever been a good framer, and I guess they don't really look at framing, but he's in the 8th percentile for framing, so he's basically like the same as Gary Sanchez, or, you know, it sucks to say this, but Francisco Mejia. Like, they can't really get a hang of that framing thing yet, but I think it's kind of like a I don't want to say royalty, but like a name brand thing with Perez. Like, he's been around forever, he's known for having a cannon, so it's just kind of like, yeah, Perez, he's a good defensive player when he's really not. He's like negative defensive runs saved this season, and I think for his career, so he's not very good defensively, but he did lead the league in caught stealing percentage. So maybe that's why he got nominated. But even then, with caught stealing, it's like, it's so much of it is on the pitcher with like how quickly they're getting to the plate, how often they check on the runner. So caught stealing really isn't a good metric to look at. But you got Tony La Russa with a say in the matter, so he's gonna hold down the old guard, I guess.
Well, I think we're contractually obligated to name an Astro player to each of these awards, and at first base, Yuli Gurriel is there as the Astros representative there. Matt Olson of the Athletics and Jared Walsh of the Angels. Who's standing out here between Gurriel, Olson, and Walsh?
When I did my initial research, I was like, oh yeah, Ty France should win the award, but he didn't even get nominated. So I guess it's not going to be him, but he had 5 defensive runs saved in 400 fewer innings than Olson did, and Olson had 6 defensive runs saved. They both had 1 out above average, so, you know, they're both, you know, kind of at the same level. But I guess I'd have to go with Olson just because France wasn't even nominated. And yeah, the Astros do get their nominee, but surprisingly, Yandy had 3 outs above average, so that was kind of cool. He didn't play a ton at first base, so, you know, he split a lot of time between first and third, so I know they want to make sure like players have a certain like innings number, I guess, to be qualified.
Okay.
But Yandy was serviceable at first base.
Yeah, do you think they're gonna keep Diaz at first? I mean, they kind of have been a rotation somewhat because of injury, but somewhat because of just platooning, right?
Yeah, I think he'll stick around because the minor league option they have, Dalton Kelly, he's an on-base machine. He's left-handed, and I don't know. I mean, I love G-Man Choi, but I don't know how much longer the Rays are going to want to keep him around, just because they've got a younger option who's going to perform at roughly the same level. And they do have, Brett Phillips in the clubhouse, so they've still got the clubhouse guy. And Choi's great, but yeah, he was -1 out above average, so not ideal there. He's not a great defender. He kind of looks like he is, but I think that's just because he does so many splits that it's like, oh wow, that's really impressive that he did that. But he's not really setting his feet right in the first place, so then he has to make a split. So it is what it is.
So you sandbag it a little bit so that when you have to do the dive that you get the extra points there. But
yeah.
Well, let's move to second base. The Angels, another guy from the Angels here, David Fletcher. You get Whit Merrifield of the Royals and Marcus Semien, who's I don't know if he'll take any hardware home, but he's definitely nominated for a bunch of hardware here. Who's going to take the Gold Glove at second?
It's all of them, all the nominees basically had the same outs above average, defensive runs saved, all that. Semien had a better zone rating than the others, so, I might give it to him. But if I was a betting man, I might say David Fletcher just because I feel like I could win some good money off of that. I don't really know how, all that stuff works. I know we talked about it before we started recording, but David Fletcher's been sneaky good. He's consistent, and he doesn't really hurt himself. Semien had the better zone rating, but I don't know. It seems like sometimes Major League Baseball likes to spread the awards around a bit, so I wouldn't be surprised to see Fletcher take it.
All right. Well, kind of the same question here, because now we finally have a guy in the running. Third base, we have the Athletics' Matt Chapman, Jose Ramirez of the Cleveland Guardians, and Mr. All-Star himself, Joey Wendell of the Rays. Is Joey Wendell taking home the third base Gold Glove? Let's go, Ben Whitelaw.
No, sorry. It's Matt
man.
Chapman is probably the best defensive infielder not named Andrelton Simmons of the past 10 years. I don't know how he does it. He doesn't really have to ever play on the shift because if you just hit the ball within 20 feet of him, he's going to get it. So he can just kind of hang back down the line. He's got a great arm. 17 outs above average. That's very impressive. Most guys, struggle to break double digits, and he does it at third base, which, it can be a tough place to play over there, but he makes it look easy. So, unfortunately, I don't think Wendell has a chance, but Chapman had a great season, so, good for him.
Yeah, I was hyping it up, but I kind of figured you were going to say that.
I was sorry to let everybody down, but yeah, Wendell had a great season. He had 4 outs above average. That's, not terrible, but Chapman with 17 is a pretty easy call.
Yeah, he's having a good season. Well, the Rays had a good season when they could leave an all-star like Joey Wendell sitting on the bench for the entire postseason. So, maybe that's a dig there. Maybe that's a little jab there. But going to shortstop, now we get the Astros again. Here's Carlos Correa, as well as J.P. Crawford of the Seattle Mariners and Andrelton Simmons of the Twins. Who's looking good at shortstop for you?
Well, I wanted to say Nicky Lopez, but then he didn't get nominated, so I guess it's not going to be him. But he had 24 outs above average. That's insane. He had only a couple defensive runs saved, but he just never really made mistakes out there. He was consistent. He was great. But I think it's a coin toss between Simmons and Correa. Correa's got way more defensive runs saved, but Simmons has a couple more outs above average, so it's just kind of a coin toss there. But I think Nicky Lopez, if he's nominated, I think he wins that, pretty easily. So sucks for the Royals, but to not have him nominated. But oh well. I wanted to mention Wander. He had 6 defensive runs saved and -1 out above average. So he wasn't a great defender, wasn't terrible. But Willy Adames had 1 defensive run saved and -8 outs above average. So the computers don't really like Willy Adames too much, but they do like Wander. So. Kind of cool that we have Wander now, I guess.
Yeah, right.
Over Adames.
And we'll get into Wander about kind of the offense. I mean, as much as he has a lot of potential defensively. That bat is what I think we're all really
definitely
excited for.
Yeah, he'll be a solid defender, but nothing too special, I don't think.
But there's a few Rays that are outstanding defenders in the outfield. I think that's one of the areas where we kind of look at that. Even the people that have been on the quote unquote taxi squad up and down. I mean, you look at a Brett Phillips that's kind of on the 25 man and then not there, and then is he there, not on the playoff roster, that kind of stuff. But in left field, you definitely had Randy Arozarena, who is a finalist for this award. He's going against Andrew Benintendi of the Royals and Gurriel Jr. of the Blue Jays. Is there a shot that Randy Arozarena is, and to be fair, I mean, I don't know if he's the greatest defender, but he kind of seems like he's a favorite to win this? Am I wrong here?
No, I think it's really a toss-up between him and Benintendi for this award. Benintendi's got the zone rating to kind of beat him out a little bit, but it's interesting because Arozarena is the fourth best outfielder on his own team, but he gets nominated for a Gold Glove. So, it's great for him. That's awesome. The league loves him. They don't seem to like the Royals players too much unless your name is Salvador Perez and you're DHing and throwing guys out a lot. But he's I think Randy could win this one, but I wouldn't be surprised if Benintendi got it too, just because he was really consistent as well.
Yeah. In center field, a guy that we've always been up on his defense, and that's Kevin Kiermeier, is the last Ray that gets a nomination here. Kevin Kiermeier for the Rays, Miles Straw of the Guardians, and Michael A. Taylor of the Royals. Pretty good outfields here for the Royals and Rays. What do you think? Does KK bring home the bacon in center field?
Unfortunately, no. I think this is the one that a Royals player does win. Michael A. Taylor was by far the best center fielder in all three metrics that I was looking at. It wasn't even close in any of them, really. KK, it doesn't mean KK is a bad fielder by any means. He's awesome. He's probably one of the greatest defensive players of all time, and I feel comfortable saying that. But Michael A. Taylor had just a phenomenal season defensively, so good for him. And I think he'll take it pretty easily.
All right. And unfortunately, we did not have any right fielders up for the right field Gold Glove, but we saw Joey Gallo of our in-division rival. Kyle Tucker is the Astros representative as contractually obligated. And then you had a guy who was a Ray and has demolished the Rays since leaving, and that is Hunter Renfroe. Does Hunter Renfroe win an award here and take another stab at the heart of Rays fans everywhere?
No, and I'm glad that he doesn't, because his shins are just too rounded and too easy for a baseball to bounce off of, so that's not what you want to have in your right fielder. So yeah, he wasn't very good by most defensive metrics. He has a crazy good arm, but teams aren't really going to test him too much, so he doesn't really have to show it off. So he doesn't really get to pad his stats with those defensive metrics. I would have said this is a coin toss between Manuel Margot and Max Kepler, just because they were two of the best defensive right fielders this season. By quite a lot, but neither of them were nominated, so I guess I'd have to go with Joey Gallo just because outs above average and zone rating. But Margot led pretty much all outfielders, I believe, not named Michael A. Taylor, in outs above average, so I don't really know how Margot doesn't get the nomination here. And even Brett Phillips, I'm surprised he didn't get a nod at all, because he was right up there with Margot, even ahead of KK in some metrics. So it's interesting how Major League Baseball does the voting, but I guess we can't go back and change it. So I'd say Gallo. Yeah,
well, Gallo might be bringing home both awards, because he's also he's nominated as an outfielder for the Gold Glove, but he's also nominated as a DH in the American League for Silver Slugger. And if we're looking at the Silver Sluggers here, we're talking offense. Well, that's exactly what the DH is there for. Shohei Ohtani, who is just I mean, he's a double all-star. He had all-star numbers for both hitting and pitching, and here he is as a DH going against Houston's Yordan Alvarez, Giancarlo Stanton of the Yankees, the guy we were just talking about, Joey Gallo, and then our very own Nelson Cruz is a finalist for the Silver Slugger. Do you think that Cruz can bring some kind of hardware home, or is it Shohei's to win?
It's Shohei for sure. Like, he is so far ahead of everybody in terms of hitting. It's crazy. I wish they would have found a way to get him more plate appearances because we could have seen more home runs, but he was so dominant, like way ahead of every DH in weighted runs created, in WAR. He's just a phenomenal hitter. But I really did like your segue, like moving into the outfield with the Gold Gloves and then moving into the DH here. So I just wanted to congratulate you on that. Those are both very smooth.
I practiced these, buddy. I used to see it's a lot of time in front of the mirror and in front of the microphone. So,
right.
well, here's another one. Okay, so we're talking about catchers now. Salvador Perez and Gary Sanchez are your finalists there, as well as Mike Zunino. Now, we've talked a lot about Mike Zunino, about his defense, his framing, all that kind of stuff, and it was always this liability, is this bat as a liability. But Zunino pretty much, if he made contact with a ball, it was going for extra bases, or at least it was going to go deep into the outfield here. Is there an outside shot that Zunino, an all-star for the Rays this year, that he brings home a Silver Slugger award?
Yeah, I feel actually pretty confident Zunino gets it here. He was, consistently in the top 2 all season long among league leaders in barrels per plate appearance. So him and Shohei Ohtani were and Fernando Tatis were right up there in barrels per plate appearance. So I think Zunino should get it. He had a 134 weighted runs created, 4.5 WAR. That's Fangraphs WAR, by the way. When I first did my research again, I was like, dang, okay, Yasmani Grandal has this completely locked up. He was a phenomenal offensive player. He had the, high WAR. He had a highest weighted runs created by, 20 points, I think, but he's not even nominated. So I'd have to go with Zunino. He had the best numbers outside of Yasmani Grandal. So I think Zunino could win this. Yeah, it's
what
exciting.
I like to hear. Well, and it's so good too, because I remember when I did the preview for this season, that was the knock on him, was which one of these guys, Mejia, Zunino, who's gonna step out? Who's gonna do something that is above and beyond for their offensive numbers? Because if we're splitting hairs, we wanted Zunino behind the plate for his framing and defense. But you're just going to stick a guy in that 8 or 9 spot that's going to bat 100 all year, and you're getting nothing but defensive prowess there. It's good to see him at least nominated, and I'd love to see him win it. So let's move on to first base. So in first base for the American League Silver Slugger, you got Vladdy Guerrero Jr., Yuli Gurriel, and Matt Olson. Just another great double dipping here from Yuli Gurriel and Vladdy here. So who's going to take the first base?
Vlad Jr. for sure. Okay. If Ohtani doesn't pitch, I think Vlad Jr. is the MVP. So it's a bit of a preview there for who I think the MVP is. But yeah. Vlad Jr. definitely, I think he gets that Silver Slugger at first base. And Yandy had a pretty good season. Just want to mention some Rays guys here.
Okay.
Yandy had a 111 weighted runs created and a 1.8 WAR. So, it's respectable. He's above league average. Former Ray Nate Lau. Sorry. No, Nate Lowe.
No, it's Lowe, yeah.
Lowe. Okay, I got it. My bad. He had a 115 weighted runs created and a 1.6 WAR. So I think the Rays made the right choice in platooning Yandy and Choi over keeping Lowe. So good job, Eric Neander. Yandy's not going to win the award anytime soon, probably, but Vlad had a good season, so nice.
Well, if we get to second base, I think the front runner is Marcus Semien again, going against Jose Altuve, who again is a double dip in here in nominations. Jorge Polanco, and then DJ LeMahieu, who doesn't really seem. It's kind of like one of these things is not like the other. We got DJ LeMahieu as a finalist for the Silver Slugger. Explain that to me.
I'll do my best, but I secretly kind of want LeMahieu to win, just so he gets more. So the Yankees have to pay him more or whatever. He gets more incentives on his contract, and then they have another $30 million locked up to a guy who's like just average. I think that would be really funny, but it's very, very, very confusing, and I can't stress enough how confusing it is that Lau didn't get nominated. I know he's not going to win because Simeon had almost an MVP type season, but Lau at least deserved a nomination. So I just want to know Tony La Russa's address so I can go ask him a question on why he didn't vote for him.
Well, we have Twitter nowadays. Maybe La Russa's on Twitter.
No, he's probably on MySpace or something.
He's probably one of those guys that just has all caps tweets and but. All right, well, we'll move on. We'll move on to third base. Raphael Devers, who was a beast against us all year. Jose Ramirez for the Guardians, and Kyle Seager for the Mariners. These are, but Seager's and Devers for sure, I think, had phenomenal years at the plate. Who do you think's bringing it home at third base?
I think Ramirez gets it. Maybe okay. Devers, just maybe, but. It's pretty close between those two, but Yandy and Joey Wendell both had better offensive seasons than Kyle Seager, or no, is it Corey? Which Seager are we talking about?
Kyle Seager's.
Okay, I know his brother's in LA.
I think it's in the outfield, yeah. Well,
but anyways, Kyle Seager, I don't know how he gets nominated because he's just not that. I mean, he had a bunch of home runs or whatever, but Yandy and Wendell both had better offensive seasons. So, neither of them were going to win over Devers or Ramirez, but again, just the voting process is very confusing, I guess, or the nomination process.
Well, what's surprising is we didn't have a Houston Astro because at shortstop, we have Carlos Correa right at front there with Xander Bogaerts, Tim Anderson, who had a good year with the White Sox, and Bo Bichette, who's always been a threat of the young and exciting Toronto Blue Jays team. But no Wander Franco at all here at short. Maybe he's a victim of just not being at the plate so much because of bringing up Vidal and Walls and all that kind of stuff early in the season. So if Wander got more plate appearances, would he have qualified for? Sure, there's a qualifier somewhere, but where do you think he stacks in these guys, and who brings home shortstop Silver Slugger?
I think Wander would be pretty close. I think he would get a nomination if he had enough plate appearances to qualify. He had a 127 weighted runs created plus offensively, so that's amazing, 27% better than league average. Willy Adames had a 119 weighted runs created, so just an interesting comparison there. So I'm glad we have Wander for the future. Nothing against Willy, but anyways, I think it's a coin toss between Bogaerts and Correa. I'd kind of like to see Correa get it just because I want to see the big 8-figure check he's going to get handed in the offseason. So it would be interesting to, for him to add a Silver Slugger to his resume. I think he already has one, but if he gets another, that would be pretty cool because he's going to get paid. He's a free agent. He's going to make a lot of money and make the owners open up their wallets a bit.
Yeah, I'm hoping a National League team spends a lot of money
absolutely.
on Carlos Correa. I hope that he goes far away to Chicago or San Francisco or St. Louis or something. It's far, 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 far away.
Yeah, anywhere but the AL East. Preferably the NL West, I think, would be the best option.
Yes. Well, outfielders, they kind of they don't designate this as left, right, or center. So there's a pretty long list here. I'll just go with you got Cedric Mullins of Baltimore, Teoscar Hernandez of the Blue Jays, Aaron Judge. Obviously, we see a lot of him every year. Kyle Tucker is our Houston Astros representative here. Mitch Haniger of the Mariners, Gurriel Jr. again of Toronto. Hunter Renfroe, never heard of that guy before, for Boston. And then a guy you may have heard of, and that's Randy Arozarena. Finally, we get a Tampa Bay Ray here. So does Randy just take this away? Is this in the bag for Randy Arozarena?
I wouldn't be surprised if he got it, but I feel pretty confident about Judge, Tucker, and Mullins all taking the 3 Silver Slugger spots for the AL. Mullins had a phenomenal season. Tucker was great, and Judge is just a threat as always. So I don't like him, but because he plays for the Yankees. If he played for anybody else, I'd love him, but he's phenomenal. So I don't think Randy gets one here, but he could. It's not impossible, but I doubt it.
And then let's take a look at some of the awards that were given out this week. We did get a American League Rookie of the Year, and that is Adolis Garcia. Let's see here. Garcia is at least he was the Sporting News rookie. Do you think he's going to end up being the Major League Rookie of the Year? And if not him, who do you have as kind of your AL rookie? Because the Rays had so many rookies. We had Wander. We had technically Randy Rosarena, right? Was a rookie still?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's so much, and you have all these guys. At least Randy, that's nominated for other pieces of hardware. I think you might be onto something where they kind of spread them around. So if he's going to get rookie, he won't get any other ones. But if he's going to slide in surprisingly as like a Gold Glove, then they can give a Silver Slugger to someone else and give rookie to somebody else. So who do you have as your AL Rookie of the Year?
Based solely on the numbers, it's Randy. He had the best WAR in the American League among rookies, and he had the highest weighted runs created plus. So that WAR factors in his defensive abilities too, which are, slightly above average. So I think Randy should get it. But like you said, if he gets, a Gold Glove or somehow gets a Silver Slugger, he's probably not going to get Rookie of the Year. It's probably going to go to Adolis Garcia, maybe Shane McClanahan. Maybe Luis Garcia of Houston. He had a pretty good season as a pitcher, and it's a little bit easier to get some WAR. You get like a higher WAR when you're a pitcher, so could be him. But I think just based on the numbers alone, I think Randy gets it. But we don't even really know who's fully nominated yet. We'll know I think before our next episode, so we'll be able to react to that.
It's the same kind of thing with Manager of the Year. To be honest, I think it's wrapped up that Kevin Cash is going to be the AL Manager of the Year for winning 100 games. It's the most ever in franchise history. And I think that these awards you have to think of not in the playoffs. I mean, you're voting on all these. You're doing all this stuff in the regular season.
Exactly.
And for them to be on It would be foolish to not think that you're also thinking about these guys were on a very high pace last year. They made the World Series last year and then come around, and it's just like you have 61 different players that played for this team this year. And say what you will about the postseason, but Kevin Cash pretty much always puts these guys in a position to win all these comeback victories and close victories that we have all year. That would be my pitch, I guess, if I'm kind of working for Cash. But the thing is that those aren't just fables. Those are realities. Those things happened. And I think because of all that he will take home AL Manager of the Year. What say you, Mr. Whitelow?
Yeah, I think he pretty easily wraps it up based on the preseason expectations for the Rays. They're so low for some reason. They do that every year. I don't know why. The Rays prove him wrong every time, but... yeah, Cash deserves it. He managed with, so many injuries, and just, like I said, the expectations. We lose Glass now. Choi's on and off the IL the whole year. A bunch of guys on and off the IL the whole year. A bunch of rookies. And, to win 100 games with that many, speed road bumps or whatever, he pretty clearly, is going to win that Manager of the Year award unless everybody starts to love Aaron Boone for some reason. I don't really see how Cash loses it.
Yeah. Well, Cy Young, I just think it's what Michael Walker wrapped up, ready to go. AL Cy Young.
In my mind, yes, I would love it, but no, I hope they re-sign him, but probably not Walker. I don't really think he'll get that, unfortunately. Yeah. But maybe Nathan Eovaldi, just because Garrett Cole fell off pretty significantly when the sticky stuff crackdown happened. He got back to normal a little bit, but Eovaldi was just had a more consistent season. He fell off a bit too, middle of the year, but he found that extra gear in him, and he set the pace for the rest of the season. He had a great year, so. Hopefully Eovaldi gets it, and then he can credit the Rays training staff for building him back up to a Cy Young winner, because they did really help him a lot throughout the rehab. So, I mean, it was a couple years ago, so I guess it doesn't. I mean, no, it still affects him. It's Tommy John surgery.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about the American League through and through for the last half hour here. What if there's any National League guys you wanted to shout out? I figure now's the time to do it. You got any NL guys we should really give thanks to, and maybe an award or two?
There were a couple that I was impressed by. Max Fried, I think he's going to get the Silver Slugger for National League pitchers. He had a 76 weighted runs created plus, which is terrible, but it was one of the best among pitchers, so that was kind of cool.
Yeah, exactly.
A Rays pitcher that could be a Silver Slugger if it was possible, which it's not. It could be Drew Rasmussen. He had a 90 weighted runs created in 3 plate appearances, so good for him. He mashes, I guess. I think he got 1 hit, but he hit the ball hard like a couple other times, so it was kind of cool. But nothing. I don't want to see.
I don't want to see those. I don't want to see those barrel numbers coming off of the pitching.
Yeah, they're like non-existent.
Exit velocity. Yeah.
No, there were nothing really too exciting in the National League. I mean, Kebrian Hayes was a huge snub for Gold Glove at third base. Pirates third baseman. He had 13 outs above average, 16 defensive runs saved. Nobody else could touch his numbers. So I don't even know how he wasn't nominated, but maybe it's because he plays in Pittsburgh. It's a bit of a smaller market, so they don't really like that. But yeah, I guess that kind of covers it. I'm just scrolling through my notes now. But yeah, Kebrian Hayes was a pretty big snub, and that's pretty good. Did we do the MVP award?
We did not. I had that coming up. That was
okay.
That was my
kidding.
Tasty little tease. No. I'd say before we get to that, one award we do know that we didn't. I didn't put at the top of the hour here is that Nelson Cruz is the 2021 Roberto Clemente Award winner. So at least we won something there, right?
He's a good guy.
And that was cool. So good for Nelson Cruz, man. Now I love all that, but we the big prize, the best picture award of the if you will is MVP. There's got to be one name that I think is leaps and bounds above. I cannot hide my enthusiasm for this baseball player. That is Shohei Ohtani. Tell me, is there any way that Shohei Ohtani is not the American League most valuable player? No,
there's really not. Like he is probably the best player in baseball. If he was in the National League, he'd win it pretty easily too. But he's the best hitter, arguably, and a top, I'd say maybe 10, 15 pitcher, and that kind of combination is insane. Like we've never seen that in our lifetimes, and he makes it look so easy. It's crazy.
Ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I am like giddy with glee every time. Like when we play the Angels, it's just like who. And what stinks the most, if we're looking back over the last few years, is that like they have Trout and they have Ohtani and like pretty much nothing else. And those guys aren't healthy enough to like be on the team at the same time for such an extended period of time. So it's always going to be like this like what if when we look back at the 2010s and things like that about like the 2020s and the late 2010s where we're kind of like these are two guys that are just like literally Hall of Fame guys like through and through, and the Angels did absolutely nothing with them. But if Ohtani was able to kind of break away from LA, I think he'd end up going to an AL East market probably. And so it ain't going to be Stu breaking out the checkbook for him. So I'm kind of glad he's on the other side of the American League. But if he were to break away from that, he would, I think, be an even bigger superstar than he already is, which is massive. But, I mean, he hits, he throws, he's amazing. He, like, I think I'd fanboy out if I got to meet him, and it's like, and there's so few of those guys around in Major League Baseball right now. That it's kind of sad that like there's not the postseason acumen that a player of his caliber should have. But we got to watch him, and that's why he's my pick for American League player.
He does everything. Like I think he stole like 25
so
bases too. Like he's fast. Like He can hit, he can throw. I don't really know if he can field too well, but that doesn't matter. We're not going to look at those defensive runs saved. We're going to look at the exit velocity and the pitching velocity, because that's the cool stuff.
Yeah, man. Chicks dig the long ball, buddy. And,
they do, apparently.
Well, and they dig the strikeout, and he does both of those things at a literal all-star level. Because even that brings up the point of like the all-star game that we didn't get last year that we got this year, and it was so fun. It was such a good festivity. You had Mancini in the and Alonso in the all-star home run derby, and you have Ohtani literally leading off and pitching in the same inning.
Right.
And them changing the rules so that he could do that. It's transcendent, I guess is the word I'm approaching here. He's just it's of a bygone era, right? You haven't talked about players who do this. I mean, you're bringing up guys like Babe Ruth in the same breath, and it's not too crazy to say that. So.
Yeah,
I love it. Sorry.
No, I feel the same way. Like I think just comparing him to Babe Ruth is crazy, but yeah, it's exciting. It's cool. It's really fun to watch.
Well, Ben, I've had a ton of fun asking you a bunch of. I've just been firing off questions, and you've been like firing them right back at me, man. I love it.
Yeah, this was a good one.
Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate you having me here, man.
Yeah, thanks for coming out from the shadows and stepping in here. Appreciate it.
Well, is there anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here?
I guess we'll just wrap this up, but I did want to mention it's pretty obvious, but Trey Mancini is going to win Comeback Player of the Year. Like I feel like he's. I don't think they had it on their like awards thing that I was looking around. Like, when are they going to announce that? But when they do, it's like very, very 100%. Clear. It's like the same way I feel about Ohtani winning MVP. Like, Mancini's getting Comeback Player of the Year, so good for him. Yep. He deserves it. Absolutely.
Well, I mean, you talk about transcendent stories. Here's a guy, cancer survivor, comes back, mashes. He's just it didn't even matter. I mean, he's on the Baltimore Orioles, but it's almost like, who cares? Like, this guy is like, we want to watch him play baseball. We want him to succeed. He's in our division, but whatever. When he's not playing the Rays, we want him to just like succeed and be awesome.
Right.
And he was. So it's like, hell yeah.
Yeah, he was. When you said it about him at the All-Star game, that's what made me think of it. Like, yeah, he's got it locked up for sure.
All right, well, I guess let's wrap this thing up, man. The only thing I gotta say is thanks for having me on again, and I got to kind of dust off the microphone, and hopefully I didn't embarrass myself on the mic here.
No, you were great. Thanks for coming, and thank you everybody for listening. Remember, you can like and subscribe, follow us on our social medias, all that stuff. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, probably, right? I think so.
Yep.
Okay, cool. I don't have my exact note for that, but yeah, you can listen to us or subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're at RBLR Sports. We're everywhere on YouTube, all that good stuff. But if you're listening, you probably know where to find us. So, spread the good word, help us out. We can keep putting out some good content. So again, thank you all for listening, and go Rays.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.